Do you
want the House to proceed with an impeachment inquiry at this point, an official impeachment
Well,
inquiry?
I wouldn't mind because we have no rights. The way they're doing it, they've taken away our rights. So if they proceed, and, you know, they'll just get their people, they're all in line, because even though many of them don't want to vote, they have no choice. They have to follow their leadership. And then we'll get it to the Senate, and we're going to win.
That your president weighing in on impeachment. It sounds like he's ready to get impeached by the House and take his chances in the Senate. And again, remember, 20 Republican senators would have to vote with Democrats, assuming they all voted for impeachment, to get the 67 magic number. Now, public opinion has turned since the Ukraine scandal broke. Now, the majority of Americans support the impeachment inquiry. Before Ukraine, the numbers, basically, they were reversed. But amazingly, the approval rating of the president basically sits where it started before. This certainly not anything but below water. He still is. I mean, the numbers are extremely high going against him, but the chart basically tells the story. 538 has averaged out a bunch of polls, and they show he's still hovering in the low 40s. That's within a few points of where he's been for several months now. Let's bring in Dominic Carter. And Dominic was in the city today where there were two Democrats, a House and a member of the House and the Senate for the New York delegation. And you were curious where they stood on impeachment.
Absolutely, Richard. I asked Chuck Schumer about where his Republican colleagues in the Senate stand, and Congressman Espaillat and I spoke about how the House is proceeding with its investigation. Hey, Senator, how are you?
Nice
doing
to
well?
see you.
Nice
How are
to
you
see you
doing?
as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Yes, Dominic.
He's the top Democrat in the Senate, and should the House ultimately bring charges and impeach President Trump, Charles Schumer would still need the backing of about 20 GOP senators. Is there an appetite in the GOP to remove President Trump?
Well, look, the House has not sent us anything yet. They're looking into the facts. I would hope that every senator, Democrat, Republican, would keep their powder dry in the Senate and wait for the facts, and then try to make a fair and objective decision regardless of party.
But Schumer says all the facts must come out. And if the president's team blocks such a move, in Schumer's words, then maybe they are not as innocent as they say they are.
Allegations are troubling, no question about it. Foreign interference in our elections is not a casual thing. It's one of the things that our founders worried most about. It's one of the things that could most lose faith in democracy.
Could there be an electoral consequence for Democrats over impeachment?
I don't think so. I think that clearly even 40% of Republicans seem to feel that if the president engaged in this quid pro quo action, that they have an issue with that. And so I came out for impeachment, obviously, on November 15, 2017, way before it was popular.
Congressman Adriano Espaillat also says the truth is the truth, and he doesn't see Democrats being hurt by this process. Then there's the question of what a possible impeachment should focus on.
There's hotels, there's properties that benefited from foreign governments and others, both domestically and internationally. So that's troubling to me. But I think that we should confine ourselves for now on this Ukraine matter, because I think the American people want it resolved, and it is a clear issue that they understand.
What would it take to move the needle for the GOP?
I'm not going to speculate on that now.
You know what's interesting, Dom? Schumer has definitely let Pelosi and also Adam Schiff basically run. It makes sense. It's in the House right now. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm reading too much into this, but a lot of Republicans in the Senate, McConnell among them, they've stayed real quiet on this. I think they're waiting to see what comes out of the House. We saw today that Mitt Romney came out really strongly and called it shameful what at least the latest developments have said about this. But for the most part, Republican senators, a few have taken up for the president, but small in number on one hand. I think he's taken a wait-and-see approach. I don't think that was just a soundbite. I think they don't want to screw things up in the House. They want to let it get to the Senate, and then they'll jump in.
Well, right now, for Schumer and certainly the Democrats in the Senate, they are trying to keep their head down on this. You don't want to get in the way of this investigation. Espaillat made an interesting point that we didn't put in the story, and that is he believes, some will say this is wishful thinking by Democrats, but he may have a point that and this is a point that Andrew Whitman has made repeatedly, as Watergate went on with Nixon, Republicans changed their minds and more supported and put pressure on him to step down.
Except they seem to at least want to keep the focus on this narrow and to keep the timeline fast. They don't want this thing dragging into late spring next year. They want to. They believe there's enough that there's been self-incrimination by the president here, or self-impeachment by the president, with what he's even said publicly this week. I notice who hasn't been talking in the House, and the president today at that impromptu. By the way, why do we, the media, cover those events before he gets on Marine One, the chopper? You can't hear any of the questions. He prowls at going back and forth, you know, and they give him free media coverage so he gets to answer. You don't even hear the questions, so he can answer it however he wants, and there's no follow-ups, no clarity. Anyway, I haven't heard any of the squad. I haven't heard from AOC. I haven't heard from Tlaib. I haven't heard from these folks. They seem to have gotten the memo from somebody, whether it be the speaker or not. Stand down. Now we saw Maxine Waters say he should be in jail here and everything else. But that said, they, for the most part, Democrats have stayed on message.
They have, and that's an interesting point about the, quote, Gang of Four, if you will. Up until recently, Richard, I felt that it was a terrible mistake for Democrats to go down this impeachment road.
Me too.
Because you just don't have the numbers. However, I stand corrected now because I watched very closely your opening editorial, and at what point do we say enough? At what point? So you asked about why we cover those when he's about to get on the helicopter, Marine One, and you're right, you can't hear the questions and he gets to answer whatever he wants. But let's be honest about it. We're at the point now, and it's very shameful, where everybody enjoys watching this train wreck. People want to, and maybe enjoy is not the right word, people want to see what's going to happen next on this train wreck.
And you know what's funny is, as much as they are, you know, what they are, those gaggles, it was 2 days ago where he said, hey, China, hey, Ukraine, you know, go get some more dirt here. Basically daring Congress to do something about it. Anyway, nice job, Dom. Thank you. Now, when we come back, everyone, we're going to move off for a minute the impeachment, but the biggest issue the president has going for him is the economy, right? And it appears strong overall, but there are some notable weak spots and some data that came out this week here, and they're happening in places in this country, those purple states here and even red states, that could be an issue for the president come next November. We'll explain after this break.